Hello chess lovers, I have a very interesting game for you played by Bruce Harper and Robert Zook. This game was played in 1971 and is known as the Tomb game. Now let's see, why does this game carry that name? Bruce Harper had white pieces and he started with d4, knight f6 by Robert Zook, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, black goes for king's Indian defense, knight f3, black castles kingside, bishop e2, e5, white castles kingside, knight c6, d5, knight d7 and bishop d2. Not the most popular move. Usually in this position white is playing either b4 preparing c5 or knight d2. But after knight d7 we see bishop d2, knight h5, black is preparing the standard f5 move, rook c1 and c5. Of course f5 would have been more logical, but first we see c5, g3 not allowing the knight intrusion on f4 square, knight f6. Well, again f5 was playable, but first black played knight f6 and then placed the knight on e8 square, and only after knight e1 we see f5. E takes f5, knight takes f5, bishop f3, b6, bishop g2, knight d4, the knight is occupying the central d4 square and f4. Here comes bishop f5, f takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop h6, bishop g7. We see the exchange of bishops on g7 square, knight d3, queen g5. Gradually black pieces are getting more and more active. Knight f4, rook e8, queen a4. Now white is bringing the queen on the queen side, trying to create some counterplay, but it turns out that this actually allows black to gain a huge advantage. We first see queen e7, knight b5, and we see the exchange of knights on b5 square. Here comes queen e3 check, king h1 and g5, kicking away the knight from this active square, and after knight h3 here comes bishop d3. Look at this knight on h3 square. The knight on the rim is dim. On the other hand, if we have a look at white queen on b5 square, the queen looks somehow misplaced. Rook takes f8, rook takes f8. Now white rook is under attack and white is placing the rook on g1 square. Bishop e4, black is also removing the bishop from g2 square and is weakening white's king side. Queen d7, and we see the exchange of bishops on g2 square, and simply queen e4, pinning the rook on g2 square and knight g1. Of course, the pawn on g5 square can't be captured because of this checkmate. We see knight g1 and h6, a very calm and prophylactic move, securing this h7 square for the king and not allowing later any possible checks by white queen. By the way, instead of playing h6, actually rook f2 straight away was also playable. If queen d8 check, then simply knight d8. And of course the pawn on g5 square can't be captured because after this simple king h8, white king is simply getting checkmated. Let's go back, but after knight g1 we first see h6, and after h4 only now here comes the rook. Rook f2, queen h3 protecting the rook, but now comes g4 first, and after queen h2 black is also pushing the h pawn h5, plumbing the king side. And now if we have a look at the position, all white can do is to move his pawns. This is just a hilarious position. Look at these buried pieces on the king side. b4, now comes the rook, rook f1, not even allowing the knight to move. b5, and a very calm and powerful move, king h8. Black is starting to make waiting moves with his king in order to place white in a position of zugzwang. Now all white can do is to move his a pawn, and after white's moves will be expired, all white can do is to place his queen on h3 square. This is just suicidal. a4 was played, king h7, look at this, a5, and believe it or not, but after king g8, white finally resigned. If a takes b6, simply a takes b6, and the only legal move for white is queen h3, and black can simply grab the queen. If king h2, then queen takes g2, checkmate. Let's have a look at that final position once again. King g8 and white resigns. these pieces are simply buried. Now can you understand the reason why this game is known as the tomb game? Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave your comments. I hope that you enjoyed this insane game. Good luck.